So I'll begin the recording here as we go through the history of Empress Verdiacee T. Golston EL-Bey. And I'll begin with a quote that was on the website relative to the purchase of the book. And this is the Empress speaking. We must learn to read on the line, then between the line, to get to my story or the mystery of the ancient Black people. If you recall, we've been saying this from the very beginning, that how we have to look at the text and the subtext of sacred writings, especially as it relates to the Bible and sacred, so-called sacred history, that you have to be able to understand what it is on the line and between the line or beneath the line in the subtext to get to our history. This is what the same method that we've been applying. With this in mind, I laid my notes on the desk to finalize my proof that this was still our land. I had picked up a copy of the official book of Louisiana land that I had gotten from the Louisiana Land Office, written by the Historical Society of the state. What I read in this book was criminal theft of property by a national government. Pause right there. Connecting it back now to the sacred text of the scriptures. We see this theme consistent through the Bible. And I'm reading from Proverbs, the 13th chapter, the 22nd verse. Listen very carefully. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. I'm going to read that again. This is a consistent theme throughout the Bible. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Very consistent theme throughout the scriptures. This thing, family, is being played out in real time. In real time. The book of James. Expansion on this same theme, that the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Now, this is very specific. We're going to see to the case of my most recent ancestor, the one that she is laying out. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl, for your misery shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. The thing that we've been saying over and over again is that we are in the final end time period. Verse 4, behold, listen very carefully, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth out. So slaves don't receive hire for labor. They don't receive wages for labor, family. Indentured servants, prisoners of war. Even now, when you go into prison, they have to pay you. It's only 10 cents an hour, but they must pay you for your work. There is a higher law that is in place. And this is the law that we are appealing to. The people that are on this call that are familiar with sovereignty know specifically what it is that I'm talking about. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth out, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. There is a meter that has been running, family, since our land, our identity, our property, our place in the earth was usurped from us, was stolen from us. A meter has been running. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman or the farmer waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and the latter rain. That term, family, early and latter rain, is code. It's actually code for a mysterious figure called the teacher of righteousness. The teacher of righteousness, early and latter rain. That is code for an historic figure referred to as the teacher of righteousness. Be ye also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. So this is setting the context in very great detail of our inheritance. And I'm certain I have not read all of the material. I know that my ancestor, when I've looked at some of the teachings, she is using the exact same scripture verses that I use to establish our identity and our position geographically in the earth in these last days. Specifically, Genesis, the 11th chapter, and then she also uses the book of Numbers. These were two tremendous revelations for me, and two giant pieces of the puzzle. But I'll bet you somewhere in her teachings is James 5, and that provided her a guide in her efforts to get back the land. I'm almost certain of that. I'm almost certain of that because she was very familiar with those scripture verses that are relative to us receiving our inheritance. So, what we just read in James 5, this act of holding back our hire or our wages or our just due for our labor, again, amounts to the criminal theft by fraud. By fraud, it said specifically, amounts to this statement right here of criminal theft of property by a national government. And understand, we're going to see that it's not just property, but our inheritance begins there with the land. Think about it. The whole Bible is about what? A promised land, the search the acquisition, the loss, and the reacquisition of what? A historical land site, right? It's all about land. It's all about land. It's all about us inheriting the earth. Am I not correct? So this is in perfect alignment with what we've known all along. Theft from ancient black people that this national government had signed to protect in the said Louisiana Purchase Sale Agreement. So what she's saying here is that the national government, once you research this, once you understand the document, that the national government of the United States had promised to protect the indigenous people, to protect their lives. This was the agreement that they made with the nation of France in writing, that they would protect the indigenous people, that they would protect their land, and they were contracted also to protect their spiritual system or their religion, which was Moorish science, which is another name of the science that we've been talking about these many days and many weeks. So that was supposed to be protected, not destroyed, not obliterated, not annihilated, as they have attempted to do. In what she calls the said Louisiana Purchase Sale Agreement. Well, we must understand that the dividing up of this landmass called the Americas, and I mean North, South, Central, into subdivisions called states was criminal as well, because that was an attempt to, again, obliterate the tribal lands and to confuse us with something called the United States of America. This is a fraudulent act, much the same way, rather, that they divided up Africa. That they did. The Dutch took apart, the French took apart, the English took apart, so forth and so on, and they established these so-called countries in a single landmass. I really want to tell you and others like you, read it for yourselves. Here it is. I hope you will understand why I had to pull the black cover off of the white lies. For the next 17 pages, it is word for word what they gave me to be the truth. I have pulled the black covers off for you to see the truth. This is from page 203 of Return of the Ancient Ones. And again, it's $9. I would encourage everyone to have a copy of this. And this will, be a very essential guide for you to energetically reconnect with your ancestors. Her Highness Divine Empress Wendy Farika Washita is the current reigning Empress of the Washita Dedugdamanya. I got to learn how to say that. Empire. And leader of the Imperial Washita Dedugdamanya nation. She is the legal heir. This is important. This is not something in theory. This is important. They have reestablished the black nobility in this case. Every one of us can do that and find it's going to require us going inside first. She is the legal heir to the Maison Rouge land grant that were skillfully willed to her great-great-great-grandfather Henry Turner, son of the Marquis de Maison Rouge. The Marquis Joseph de Maison Rouge, the child of French nobility, that is us too. Don't think of Europeans. We are the indigenous people in every land on the face of this earth, and the rightful owners to it, was rescued by Baron Philip de Bastroff at the beginning of the unrest culmination of the French Revolution. This is a critical time period. And my research family, through an indigenous search engine, led me, let me see, where is it at? I might have, bear with me. It led me to confirm my lineage. And I'll show you that particular website. And I had, you all remember I was talking about the Dawes Act or the Dawes Roll, where they were signing up the indigenous people, and where the initial fraud began. They were signing up the original indigenous people, and how for $5, European people and people of other nationalities were signing up on the Dawes Roll. And they got land again by fraud, by fraud. But again, just like in South Africa, it's happening in America, and the groundwork has been laid. We getting our stuff back. So when I did the search, he talked about the French War. This search, and I had Googled the name Golston, goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War, and to the War of 1812, the Mexican-American and early Indian Wars, the Civil War, Spanish-American War. These are the time periods of documents like birth certificates, draft registrations, etc., and so on, with the name Golston on there. Do y'all know I'm going to get my inheritance? Y'all must know that. I'm so thankful that I can show you this, because at the beginning of the class, I talked about doing something, manifesting something in the physical, manifesting, making that connection with our ancient ancestors, and manifesting something in the physical. This is the beginning. This goes from 1715, the timeline, to 2013. 1715 to 2013. And I'm sure once I connect with my other ancestors and relatives, that they will provide even more information and more resources to get this. I'm going to tell you all the number that is attached to, and I'm talking about money, that is attached to the Louisiana Purchase. All right? And our particular inheritance. So, again, through the Dawes Law, the Dawes Roll, Dawes. We talked about it. Through the Dawes Roll, you can find, you can go on and they have these search engines, you know, and, you know, this is not like Ancestry.com. These are the legal documents that you need. And it's over 2,000 matches for my particular name. And you best believe that I'm going to go through all of these with a fine tooth comb and get my documentation together and go on and finish the work that my great ancestor began here. My great ancestors laid out. So Henry Turner is the child of Marquis de Masson Rouge by an imperial Washa woman, Her Highness Saint Cyr El Ayimaria. Ayimaria. Now that family is Hebrew. That's a Hebrew name. El Ayimaria. So this is consistent with the work that we've been doing and with the statement that the black nobility is established through the feminine and not the male. The discovery of her Egyptian-like coffin is recounted in Return of the Ancient Ones. So again, just like Ankh-Afnakansu, this has connections with ancient Kemet. And when you have a proper understanding of that, you know that it of necessity has to have that connection. And we demonstrated that in prior classes. After the Marquis's death, Henry Turner began recovering the titles to all the land and rights granted under his father's name, including the Masson Rouge grant, the de Bastrop grant, and the Crozat grant. One of the old empresses, Delphi Kim Washington Washita, who lived from 1849 to 1966, lived during the turbulent years immediately following the legal recovery of part of the land in 1848. So we have a legal right. There is legal precedent to recovery of the land. They have to acknowledge it now. She experienced the violent assaults waged upon the Washita, Washingtons, and Tunica Turners to steal the land. Empress Delphi Kim is the key to the research by our Empress. She inspired and guided our previous Empress. This is my relative, Verdiacee, dubbing her Tiara. This is the T in her name that her grandmother gave her. Tiara means the crowned one. Empress Verdiacee, Tiara, the crowned one. Golston EL-Bey, dubbing her Tiara or the crowned one, before her transition at a modest age of 117. This is a mark of the individuals, my family in Louisiana, by and large, especially the women. They live to be centenarians, extremely long life. And my father brought this to my attention that one of our relatives, again, is that is alive now, is getting up there into her 90s, and I believe it was one of her sisters or aunts or cousins a while back was featured on television as the oldest living woman in the United States, and that is one of our relatives. And I believe I have a picture of her somewhere. My father sent me a picture of her. I think it's a newspaper article or something like that. But I'll try to find that and show that to you. But this was Empress Verdiacee's grandmother that dubbed her while she was an infant now, Tiara or Tiari, the crown one. And she laid the groundwork for the reclamation of the land. In other words, she left the information for her granddaughter. Her Highness Divine Wendy Farcia Washita's grandmother and previous Empress Verdiacee Tiari Washiti Turner Tunica Golston EL-Bey spent more than 30 years researching the leads left by her grandmother. While on her quest for truth and to free her people, she suffered great losses, brutal physical attacks, slanderous character assassination, and continuing threats against her life. Yet she remained undaunted in her quest to rebuild the nation. She was a world-renowned archivist, researcher, and legal mind. She served in various capacities of government locally, nationally, and internationally as the founder of townships and the city of Richwood, Louisiana, near sacred indigenous grounds. Very important fact here. And this is going to be key as we reestablish these things. She was instrumental in establishing social and economic agendas to improve the living conditions of the underprivileged communities. Her work took her around the world. Studies in Japan equipped her with the ability to effectuate the financing and installation of citywide sewage systems for one of our towns. As a mayor, she was an elected officer and one of the founders of the Conference of Mayors, both nationally and internationally. Now, I remember hearing about this, but I had no idea that she was behind it. Our previous Empress authored several programs that were implemented on federal and state levels. No lightweight individual. Very serious individual here. She was an invited advisor to the U.S. Congress, the presidents, and a delegate to the OAU. This is very important. Organization of African Unity meeting. In July and August of 1996, the Empress led a group of emissaries to the summer conferences at the United Nations offices in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, this is very key here. During the 14th session of the United Nations Working Group on Indigenous Populations, the Washita de Dudamandja was recorded as the oldest indigenous people on the earth. That's in North America. The oldest indigenous people on earth, not in Africa, in North America, in the final list of all attendees. In 1993, the Washita Indigenous Nation of Mound Builders received its United States number 215/93. So this is going to be my starting point, family, in my application to get all of mine back. To date, the Empress, as one of the living heirs of Henry Turner, has recovered the title to 68,883 acres of land comprising the northern part of said state of Louisiana. This might just be partial of what they owe us. But again, the wealth of the wicked stored up for the righteous in the last days. Do y'all hear me? So rest assured, I'm going to find out personally how much they actually owe us. I'm going to complete this work. Our past Empress endured the effects of an ischemic stroke in June of 2000. She made her transition from her spiritual form April 19th, 2014, near Los Angeles, California. This is so curious because for some reason, my daughter has moved westward to Los Angeles, California. And I really want to get her on here to tell the story because this was very spiritual, very spiritual. And she was told prior to that move that she had an female spirit that was very close to her. That was very close to her, a female spirit that was very close to her. Zimmer, are you on the line? Can you turn your mic on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Now, can you confirm what I'm saying?
Yes.
Absolutely. That was the uh, a so-called psychic read her uh, prior to her going out there. I think this was a couple of months or so before she made the decision to go. Dana, if I'm correct, right?
Um, I think it was maybe a little bit before that because she
Okay.
had been planning this.
Right, right. But the fact is that she said it was a female spirit, and she and her friend drove all the way across country to. They made an adventure out of it to California near Los Angeles. So, and uh, my Isha, my wife, and I, our plan in the very near future is to have a second home out there as well. So the information, Dana and I was talking about this, and I was like, you know, this is going to be easy to contact someone. And here is all of the contact information that we need, and all I'm going to have to do is say my last name, and these individuals are going to make the connection, and I'm going to let them know that I am there to complete this work, that my great ancestor began on our behalf. And again, this is all connected to what it is that we have been talking about recently. It all ties in. Each one of us are on this journey, on this particular journey. It might not lead you to the same place that my particular journey has led me. And maybe it will. Maybe we'll find out that some of us, maybe all of us on this line are somehow uh, linked to this people genetically. But we each have to go inside and do our own search. I'm giving us the example. This has led to, oh, and as a matter of fact, this is the information, the new document that I was starting, called Asar and Asar, aligning with the power of our inheritance. This was the new document that I began, and I had begun doing the research and understanding the science of this, because this is what it's about. Again, connecting it to the particular scriptures. And initially, it was something that had to do with this specifically. Oh, in terms of tithes and stuff like that, and of specifically Malachi 3 and 10. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to before we take a break. Genesis 14, verses 14 through 23, where family, it talks about this mysterious individual called Melchizedek, king of Shalom, king of Salem, or king of Shalom, king of wholeness, king of wealth, king of health, king of prosperity, king of success, in the 14th chapter of the Genesis, where Abram, and this is a very central caricature, this Abram caricature, relative to our inheritance. And this particular passage of scripture is talking about an incident where his wives, his possessions, his goods were stolen from him. Were stolen from him. All right. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, that is his brother Lot. We're going to get into this and decode this a little bit further. He armed his trained servants, born in his house, in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And again, we're going to decode all of this. This is very pregnant with meaning. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hovah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. It's on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods. Listen, he brought back all the goods, and brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the woman also, and the women also rather, and the people. Again, this is coded information that relates directly to what it is that we are doing and that we are going to need to do to recover our inheritance. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Kedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, or king of Shalom, brought forth bread and wine. Listen, brought forth bread and wine. And he was the priest of the Most High God. And he, that is Melchizedek, listen, blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he, meaning Melchizedek, the king of Salem, gave him, Abram, tithes of all. Gave him a tenth. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me persons and take the goods to thyself. In other words, just give me my people, just give me my identity, and keep the possessions. Keep my goods. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. Again, we're going to go over this, but I just want you all to take that in as a template to what it is that is occurring in our midst right now. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. Now, understand this. Don't nobody misunderstand that I'm in here talking about tithes as it relates to the church. That is fraud, what they're doing. They use these two verses, and understand, I taught on this when I was in the church. And I still got the shoe print on the pants that I was wearing when they booted me out of the church for teaching on this. Zimra was there. She got kicked out too. But they kicked me out first. She was just with me. Because we see that it wasn't Abraham who gave tithes to the king. It was the king that gave tithes to Abraham. The church got it backwards and got these individuals bamboozled. And some other religious institutions as well that think that they can demand tithes from the people. This is not how it goes. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. Well, what is the storehouse? Where is the storehouse at? That's at your house. The storehouse is at your house. We won't even get into that. It ain't at no church or no temple. The temple, read your Bible. The temple didn't have no storehouse there. It just had an altar for sacrifices. The storehouse is you. As a matter of fact, you are the temple as well. But see, we've been bamboozled by this thing under these various religious systems and their programming. That there be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. I'm getting ready to tell you all before we break how much is owed to the descendants of the Washita for relative to the Louisiana Purchase. When the Empress went to the United Nations in 1993, she received a claim number 215/93. Y'all see it there. The claim was from the time, remember I said the meter was running, from the time that they criminally and fraudulently stole the land. The United States, the meter has been running up to the time in 1993 that she made the claim. She estimated the value of that land at the time of what was owed as $1 quadrillion. We ain't even heard about that. We don't even know what that number means. That is 1,000 trillion. And family, the meter is still running. The initial claim, the initial payment that she made, she had sent out at that time some forms for people to fill out because the United Nations wanted to know what was their claim, what it was that they wanted. And of course, the people didn't respond to it. But the Empress put the claim in for the first payment of $1 trillion. That's what's due. And again, the meter is running on that. So we're talking about, the nations of the world, when they talk about doing transactions and they talk about gross national product, they talk about that number. They talk about debt. They talk about lending. And they deal in trillions of dollars. This is one claim that is worth $1,000 trillion. I don't even think there's 1,000 nations on the earth at this time. Are y'all understanding the magnitude of what it is that we're looking at in terms of our inheritance?
Yes.
A legal claim. A legal claim. And understand, they did all this thing, all of this stuff to try to get rid of us, to try to wipe us out. Yet and still, we are still here, armed with the knowledge now of who it is that we are.
Still we rise.
And armed with the power to demand our inheritance. And this power is going to be activated within us all. This power is going to be soon activated within us all. Remember, see, this is the problem, and again, I'm not denigrating anybody, but I had a problem. I looked very closely with these sovereignty type groups that were related to the Moorish Science Temple, and very good information. I educated myself, familiarized myself of the, as far as the legal aspect of this. But here's the problem. That the difference is that the individuals, and I'm not doubting the legality or the veracity of the documents, but the difference is, in order to enforce a legal claim, and I'm talking strictly in terms of being a sovereign nation, the power behind your claim is the fact that you have a standing army within this system. And I know this white boy. And we all should know that the legal standard and the legality and the legal veracity of a matter, they're not bound by that. We see this recently in the entire history of injustices. as it relates to our people should tell us that they're not listening to legal arguments like that. You either have to have a whole lot of money behind you. Worst case example of this was O.J. Simpson, who got away with murder. Do y'all hear me? You either have to have a whole lot of money or you have to have some power backing you up when you knock on the door demanding your claim. This was demonstrated very early on in this story from Genesis 14. Listen to what I'm saying. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, what was the first thing he did? He armed his trained servants, born in his own house. This is code. You have to have some power backing you up. And when I say power, I'm not talking about force. I'm not talking about a legal army like that. This is a reference to our ancient ancestors, family, who are returning, the ancient old ones. They are nothing to mess with. We have to be on their side. We have to make that connection first. And then we have to align ourselves with that energy. Are y'all hearing me? We're not talking about no physical army like that, but you have to come demonstrating some type of power to let these fools know that if they don't relinquish what it is that's rightfully yours, they'll have a different type of war on their hand. And I've been emphasizing, we do not war carnally. Our fight is not carnal. So we're not trying to arm a bunch of individuals. But I'm calling on my ancient ancestors to get my back. They're the ones that want this for us. Are you all hearing me? So we're going to take a break right here for about 10 minutes and pick up and then come to a close. Y'all hear me? We don't wage war.
Got it.
Like they wage war. Those who are with us are far more than those who are with them. I'm going to pause here for about 10 minutes and we're going to pick this back up. Okay, as we close, I'm going to pick up on this point that I was making in terms of the difficulty that I had with some of the sovereignty efforts, the efforts of sovereignty groups and so-called sovereign nations to recover owed monies or inheritance, however you want to put it, from our captors. And while some of the, you know, the efforts of the individuals, and again, I'm not, I can't talk about these things outside of my own personal experience. But some of the ones that I have personally been in contact with, I think I have an understanding of individuals in power, and I would listen to some of the individuals, and they had, of course, testimonies of how successful they were in, maybe traffic court or with certain misdemeanor cases or lesser criminal cases, tort cases, and so forth. And I thought that of course, that those things are effectual, and I've even witnessed firsthand, individuals operating with these particular laws, and again, it's not a wholesale condemnation by any means. Any effort for on behalf of our people that have been frauded and disenfranchised, I applaud. I give my attention to, and but I just got to a point where when you hear of the larger cases, of actually making the demands, that there's always a catch-22 involved. And I kept hearing, yeah, well, we did this and we did that, but this was in line and that paperwork was in line, but they just ignored it. They didn't do it, or they took some other type of fraudulent action. And so I just know that power never cedes anything. Power never cedes anything. And corrupt power will keep on changing the game. They are not, when you're talking about a criminal enterprise, when you're talking about these United States, you're talking about an enemy that is occupying your homeland, um, an invader, and there was no rule of law um, that was recognized from the beginning. Whether it was higher laws or man-made laws. All over this planet they have they're lawbreakers, and very violent lawbreakers. And everywhere that they have gone, might has made right. Are you all with me? It wasn't the rule of law, because all rules of law were violated to get them in the position that they are in anyway. So again, my standpoint is that if it's sometimes if you're demanding something, that you're in the right, but if you're dealing with unjust and evil people, you're going to have to take a big stick with you sometimes. You're going to have to be prepared to demonstrate some type of power. And again, we don't war after the flesh. That's never been our thing. We don't war after the flesh. Our power is spiritual. It is energetic. It is in our knowledge of how to operate on the higher planes. And that has always been my problem, that you're going to a people that are criminally insane, that are violent by nature. And usually when a sovereign nation, when you have that status, and legally many of these organizations have that status, the one thing that you need to make your voice heard at times is a standing army. And again, I'm just talking about from a purely political sense. And again, in Genesis, the 14th chapter, in this allegory, it tells us that the first thing that Abram did when he learned that his brother had been kidnapped and taken captive, and not only that, that all of their goods, all of their possessions, even their women were taken. The first thing he did was to arm himself, And as I explained before, this this portion, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house. Now, why would they put born in his own house? This is a direct reference to our ancient ancestors. This was all our connection with our ancient lineage, our ancient heritage, our ancient ancestors in the netherworld was always our strength, always our wisdom, always our knowledge, always our power. Are you all with me?
We're here.
All right.
Yes.
With you.
Another scripture that demonstrates this, and again, allegorically, was the story in the book, appropriately, of Second Kings, the 6th chapter. And this is a story about when the king of Israel the king of Syria warred against the king of Israel. Okay? And in the 15th verse, it talks about a situation. Let's start in the 13th verse and read downward. And he said, "Go and spy where he is, that I might send and fetch him. And it was told to him, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots, and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about." So this is the king of Syria looking for the prophet Elisha. And he sent horses and chariots he sent his army and compassed the city where this prophet was staying, compassed it about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not. Listen, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. See, this is what you have to have. This connection. Y'all got to hear me. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes. In other words, open all of his eyes, all three of them, that he may see. Had to see, family, within that cosmic realm. To know and understand, you have to have that connection. That they that be with us, listen, are more and mightier than they that be with them. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, This is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come into Samaria, that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes. And they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, My father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he answered, Thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. So we see this ability to what? Fight spiritually, war in the cosmic realm. And once this power, first of all, the first step is to make this connection with your ancestors. This is what I'm encouraging you to do, to make that effort to go inside so that you know that you're not just what? Listening to my story and deciding whether or not you believe that or not. That you believe if that's verified, that if that is something that is verifiable, something that is legitimate. It's not for you to know. It's for me to know that I've made this connection. It's for all of us to know that we can make this connection on a very personal level so that you know that you know that you know. Not that you believe my story or you believe someone else's story or some allegory in the Bible. That is not how we're operating. This thing has got to become very personal for each of us individually. And again, like I said before, we might find out that we're all related. This thing has been mixed up in this mixing bowl called America so bad that, shoot, I mean, for you to go to ancestry.com or something like that, blackancestry.com, that is a fraud. That is of no use. We have to make that connection through through melanin, dark matter, dark energy, dark consciousness. You all with me? Each of us individually, where you know in your knower that your ancestors are on your side. Why? Because the things that you request of them, that they respond without a shadow of a doubt. These ancient ones or these great old ones are the legendary individuals, what the Bible called the giants, the men and women of renown, famous, legendary for their powers. These are the ones, family, that are returning to wage war, to aid us in our quest for our inheritance. We started out this portion of the study under this subject, perceiving the ancestors and watchers as guardians over thought forms. You all remember that. We went over it. And we made this connection step by step. Our ancestors are the ministering spirits. Listen, they are what we traditionally refer to as what? Guardian angels, the watchers. They've been watching over our evolution of consciousness. For me, the last 48 hours has made that explicitly clear. But it's been clear all through this process. If it had not been clear, I wouldn't have got on and attempted to put this information on view before you. And it has led me on a very personal journey. Each of you, by virtue of you being on this call, have embarked on that journey. I'm very close to the finish line. I've been telling my wife, that we're very close. We're very close, and we finally got this breakthrough. Each of us, again, I'm nothing special. I'm only special in the fact that I know the right questions to ask myself, and when I get the answers, I apply them. That is the difficult portion, to apply the knowledge that you get, to trust it, trust yourself. Black magic is simply this: is you convincing yourself that what you are doing is powerful and effectual. Dark matter consciousness, dark matter and dark energy. The power of it is simply this: that you have convinced yourself that what it is, whatever it is, whatever direction that you're going, there is no set way. Whatever path that you've chosen is the right and correct path. And that what you say, what you intend, what you purpose will happen. There is no other secret, there is no other secret knowledge. The power is within you. And your ability to not believe in me or believe in the information, or to believe in yourself, that you have the ability to do it. And you must be tenacious in it, in the face of all opposition. Zimran knows that this has been the most difficult part of the journey, to trust in yourself, trust in what you're seeing, trust in what you're feeling, trust in what, that is the magic, not what nobody, not whether it aligns with anything anyone else is doing. That's your path, is not their path. Your path is your own. You have to make it your own. You must have that confidence. You must have that, and you'll find out that you will get the results. But it's based on how much you believe in you, not some God outside yourself, not some sacred document. The documents and those are just tools. Those are just entry points, gateways for you to go inside yourself and to activate these things. You all hear me? But our ancestors, these guardians, these watchers, are here to help us, and here to lead us into the full possession of what is ours, what is our birthright, what is our inheritance. Hebrews 1 states it very succinctly. But to which of the angels said he at any time, sit at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool? Are they not all ministering spirits, sent forth to minister for them that shall be what? Heirs of salvation, heirs of our own salvation, heirs of our own, possessors of our own inheritance and that of our ancestors. So this is the information, family, that this is where we started, on this particular journey. And we start with the ancestors and we end with the ancestors. Look, I provided so much information. and all with the intention of covering as many bases, as many areas as I could to present you with the proper information and the proper understanding in a coherent fashion, so that you could develop your own system, find your own entryway. You know, I can the only thing that a teacher can do is to what? Lead you to the door. You have to enter in yourself. So again, we have started from prehistory and taken this journey to familiarize ourselves with who and what the ancestors are, and how we what access, how we align with that, and what it is that we can expect. So, you know, again, you all have the notes. Uh, we have the videos, you know, and we've come to a point, not only that this particular session is going to end, but again, hopefully, this is going to mark a new beginning for us all, a new reality, you know. And you know, again, that this is what our ancestors desire for us. Well, we just have to align with them. And the earth is ours. We are the heirs to this. We are the heirs not only to the earth, but the dominion of it. We are the black nobility. We are the original indigenous people to whom this physical realm was created. It was created by us. It's created for us. And we've gone through the, you know, the entire scope of our history, why we find ourselves in the predicament that we find ourselves in. Each of us on this phone, on this call rather, should be able to articulate that, to be able to understand that, and to be able to know the context, the historic context that we find ourselves in now. We are right at the end point, and it's up to us. I mean, you know, I wouldn't want anyone else to get my stuff. I was like, even like on
Please.
absolutely, even on the street level, you take something from me or you do something for me or mine, you got to see me. You got to see me. I'm not sending anybody else. I couldn't sleep at night doing this. Got to happen. We have to develop that attitude. We have to develop that attitude. This is ours. And all we have to do is demand it and to bring it into existence. You know, I don't want nobody else writing my story. I want to write it. I want to end. I want to be the one that vindicates my people. We each play a role in that. Each of us play a role in that. So
Hey.
we're going to close it right here. The next class will be our last class. We're going to wrap this thing up uh, with again, a review and move this thing forward. And, you know, and sincerely, in a way, I'm glad that I'm going to, as I go forward, I'm going to be teaching a lot less. It's not necessary. I'm going to be teaching a lot less and demonstrating a lot more. Are you all with me? I'm going to be teaching a lot less and just allowing my life to be an example much more. So Not to say that we won't do another series of class, but the class is going to be a lot different, and it's going to be more instructional. It's going to be more interactive. It's going to be more testimonial of what recorded of what people of what we are each doing to apply this knowledge in our results. So we're going to end right here. I'm going to ask if there's any questions or comments at this point.